Sawadee Krap, and welcome to episode 2 of the Think Pink podcast. Today I'm with a guest, a good friend of mine and my second favourite ranger, Sam Goodman. How are you today, brother?
Good, thanks, mate. Thank you for having me. I'm coming for that top spot, Sure O'Donnell.
Wow. So the reason why I have Sam on, we talk all the time, we catch up, we talk a lot of Muay Thai together and stuff, and obviously on the first episode I mentioned you as, you know, one of those trainers who's quickly coming up and making a name and all that sort of stuff. Let's do the whole go back to the start, how you started in Muay Thai. I'm going to say that very loosely, but how you started in Muay Thai and sort of what got you to, let's say, when the scamdemic hit, like that, up to that point, when the scamdemic hit and you were doing what you were doing. Obviously you were at a Aruta then, doing what you were doing. I'll hand the mic over to you and you can just hand it back to me when you're ready.
Cool. So yeah, my first 1 to 2 gyms were definitely what you'd call, I might be insulting to kickboxing, but kickboxing with elbows. Just spazzy gyms, volume, no real Muay Thai history in the gym or even technique. So I definitely had what you'd call a rocky start to trying to be an actual Nak Muay. Coming into the scandemic, I was at a BJJ gym that trained Muay Thai, and I was fighting semi-regularly, but I was one of those classic problem fighters that only ever fought in their hometown. The furthest I'd ever traveled to fight was Whyalla. For people that don't know, that's a couple of hour drive from here. I never fought interstate. I never fought on proper Muay Thai promotions or anything. I definitely enjoyed it, and I loved Muay Thai. I was just never necessarily good at it. And leading into the scamdemic, obviously we all lost plenty of fights, and me and my partner just decided it was time that if I wanted to do this properly, I had to go somewhere, like get a real coach, get a good gym. So we packed up and moved to Thailand early on in it. So we got to Phuket during it, and it was empty, and it was blissful in Phuket then. It truly was. There was no foreigners. It was awesome. The only people that stayed around were the dedicated fighters. So we ended up at Phuket Fight Club. Everyone knows what that is. One of the best gyms in the world. And then the only people that were there at that time were the hardcores, like the permanents. There was no big tourist population filling up what we ended up calling tourist class every day, just casuals, just spazzers from random countries that were coming to either learn for their first day or brawl. And about halfway through my time in Thailand, I kind of decided that, you know, not that fighting wasn't for me, but that I was kind of ready to try transition into a coaching period or a coaching position. So I started to really focus on my learning to be a coach, not necessarily just to be an athlete. Just sat down with very intelligent people and very good fighters and asked their opinions and looked and listened and tried to ask the right questions. And then came back, and we've just hit our 1 year mark at Adelaide Muay Thai. We've pumped out a couple of fighters so far. But yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. So let's go back to, all right, so we'll start with, so you've fought Team Pinky guys a few times. First one was versus Jason. Second one, Jason, that right in that order, yeah? And that was like a week before lockdowns and shit, right?
Yep.
And then you fought Panna as well, like during scamdemic times. At that point, so I know I've had a pretty candid chat with your missus about it, and she obviously thought I was a bit of a wanker and all that kind of stuff because of my opinions and stuff. I don't give a fuck about people's opinions and shit anyway, but like their opinions of me. What were your thoughts on the way that I would speak about everything? Man, if we're going to put it in that category, everything that you were doing even, you know, like what were your thoughts about things that I would say at that period of time?
See, at that stage, I just considered myself uneducated. I truly, even though I was competing in Muay Thai, I didn't understand Muay Thai. Muay Thai is not just the rule set. I competed in Muay Thai, but I was never a Muay Thai athlete. I never fought Muay Thai. I competed under their rule set. It's kind of how at least how I would describe it. So I didn't know what I didn't know, which might sound dumb, but it's just true. I thought, you know, I'm throwing elbows at someone. I occasionally knee and clinch someone. I'm in a ring. There was some Thai music. I sealed it. See, I'm a Muay Thai fighter, but I never was. And it took me learning that I didn't know that to know that I didn't know that. So, like, even the first Jason fight, I came backstage and, like, said hi to you. We didn't really know each other. And I said, like, I'd seen your documentary, and Jason was my first 5 rounds, even though it was amateurs. And I said, like, you know, it was scary fighting a Team Pinky guy for my first 5 rounder because you guys train real Muay Thai. And even at that stage, I knew the difference between what I was doing and what Jason was doing and what your team was doing and what you were saying. So, like, it's not a controversial thing to say that you're outspoken. And I think that's what you mean when Evey was like, my partner was like the things you were saying, like, why are you saying this? But it was all, especially in hindsight, so true. I just didn't know that I didn't know it at that stage. And it took going to Thailand and experiencing what fully encompasses Muay Thai, not just the rule set, the culture, the things that should be done right, the things that aren't done right, especially here in South Australia when it comes to Muay Thai fights, the Muay Thai scene, and even the Muay Thai community on the whole. We're definitely going in the right direction, in my opinion. But yeah, at the time, I was like, this guy talks a lot and talks a lot of crap about exactly what I do. That's very unfortunate. But I like to think, like, you know, I feel like some people might not give you your flowers. You've definitely had such a positive influence on the South Australian scene. Like, you do so much for it. And even just your podcast with Matt Moss, like, just the ideas you guys put out. I've never trained under you. I've never one of your students, but the theories that you teach and preach, if preach is the right word, have definitely helped build the culture of my gym. And I feel like the comeuppance of South Australian Muay Thai will definitely be on the back of you and stuff that you do and the stuff that you teach or at least talk about for the people that are willing to change and kind of uptake that information.
Oh, thanks, man. Shucks. So let's go to. All right. So first fight with Jason, as you said, 5 rounder. You beat him on points. Shit day at the office for Jason, and until the 5th round, he didn't really bother you at all. It was only the 5th round that he actually started fighting back, because I think that was where his mental game was. It was, oh, it's over now, I might as well just fucking have a crack.
Yep.
Can't remember how long the time was between the two of them, the rematch. And you've kind of, at that stage, Jason had developed himself as a clincher, and you kind of, obviously, you said to me after that was the first time we probably actually had a conversation. It was out the back after that fight.
Yeah.
You were sitting on the stage, I think, maybe ice on your shin or something.
Very short arm.
On arm, that's right. That's right. Was that?
Don't touch blocks, kids.
Was that arm from Jason? Was that
It was Panna that ended up killing my arm.
Yeah. So, but
bad Muay Thai, never check, always block with my arms.
So it was okay.
I chewed up my arms when I fought.
Okay. So yeah, I remember us having a conversation. You and Evey were sitting up on the stage in that separate room. It was the first time, and I was like, I actually like this guy, because my downfall as a human, I'd say, as a Muay Thai human, is I so quickly judge a person off their Muay Thai, and I just thought you must have been a retard.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. My Muay Thai is more retarded than I am, but you're not wrong.
So. Talking to you out the back, I remember saying to Jason, man, he's a good dude, eh? And then, obviously, we got the win on that second one. That was, I think a lot of people were surprised that, you know, Jason didn't play the one-dimensional game of what everyone thought he was going to do, including yourself.
Yep.
How did it feel going to, like, you know, what was going to be potentially a long-term break? Obviously, we didn't know at the time, but how did it feel going into that time, coming off of that fight? Like, because as a trainer, we like to talk to people about, you know, sometimes you get stuck in a period where you can't get a matchup and your last fight wasn't your best performance, and how to overcome that kind of feeling. At that stage, you still hadn't been to Thailand. You still hadn't done that stint in Thailand. You still were doing what you did. How was your mind after that fight?
It hurt my feelings. Jason improved day and night, in all honesty. He had confidence. His skill level, like Jason, I'm pretty sure off the top of my head, had a lot of fights real early. Yeah. So the amount of years of training we had were disproportionate to the number of fights he had and I had. Jason, the first one was like my 3rd fight. I think he was almost double digits by the time we first saw each other, and then I would have 1 or 2 after him before the rematch. He would have had 5 or 6.
So that fight was 2 years 2 years from him walking in the gym, and it was his 17th fight.
Yeah. So I did a year and a bit as a teenager, and then I did 3 interclubs, which I probably trained a year for because the gym interclubs were world titles. Oh. And they weren't, but there was still too much. Like, we trained for interclubs, which was ridiculous now.
Yeah.
It's just another day of sparring for my gym these days, which is the lessons I learned, which I now try pass on as a trainer, which I'm hoping down the road will lead to being a good trainer. Don't make my mistakes. But yeah, it hurt my feelings. I came off that fight. I thought I fought terribly, and I also got outfought that day. It was actually a split decision, and I've watched that many times. I think Jason won 4 rounds, but my spazzy volume style and terrible judging led to at least one judge being like, I think you won that. I was shocked when they said split decision because, yeah, I even in the fight scored at least 4 rounds to Jason that day. And I was like, I've got a fight 3 weeks after this. I'm going to dust off the cobwebs. I'm going to not show up like I did that day. And then from that, and then the 21 days later fight, I didn't get to fight for 2+ years.
What was the next one?
Pride. There was a Pride. So I reckon that was a February fight against Jason, and I reckon there was a March Pride or something.
You were supposed to fight Shane.
I was meant to fight Shane Wright, I believe. Right. Yep. Yeah. There was a few changes, but I think that one was Shane Wright. I remember the poster.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
In the 2.5 years, how I like how you're interviewing me now. In the 2.5 years, how what went through your mind with, because the first one back was Panna, right? Was that the first one back?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to that then. Like, what was your mindset going into Panna?
So, at least in South Australia, I did over that 2.5 years. I lost fights got cancelled on fight week 2 or 3 times for me. So we're doing 24-hour weigh-ins. I'm deep in weight cut. I'm training hard at home because, again, we couldn't go to the gym all the time. They shut gyms here in South Australia. Awesome idea. And then I finally get one, and I'm meant to fight some dude from Melbourne. It was meant to be K1. Here's some undefeated dude from Melbourne. Victorians can't get out of their state. Then they offer me 4 or 5 different people here in South Australia. People kept taking it for 1 or 2 days and then would turn it down. And then I think, 6 days out, Panna took it? 4. And Panna had a couple of fights at that point, and he showed me he had a padded fight in Queensland against a guy who didn't know his jab from his kick. And then on a couple of days' notice, jumped in against me. And my mindset going into that was just, thank God I can finally get back in the ring, or thank any of them at that point. Because I'd been out so long. My fighters group shared a photo of me the other day looking sad, doing housework with abs. And I was doing housework because I was meant to fight that night on a show. And I'd done my weight cut. And so I was lean and I was hungry and I was grumpy. And it's just me cleaning my house. Because that's what the scam demo looked like in South Australia for fighters at that time. But I was just stoked to get in there. It definitely wasn't my best performance. It was a good performance. I was happy with it. But it was good to be back. It blew the cobwebs off. And that was my last fight before I went to Thailand as well.
So I know you got banged up in that fight. Like, this is something I try and say to people. Like, you don't actually have to be necessarily good at fighting. Like, obviously from an early stage, I'd been teaching, like we were talking about off air earlier, like I teach my guys how to fight pro.
Yeah.
So it's not like we have massive amateur careers of 40, 50 fights in a row before you go pro. The only way you have that many amateur fights is if you go and fight in IFMAs and stuff. So for Panna to jump in, he'd only ever done 3 2s and then all of a sudden was fighting 5 2s against you. He didn't have the gas tank as such, but still managed to get through the 5 rounds. But training that pro style, if he wasn't scared of the punches, it probably would have been a bit of a different fight, would have been a bit more of a dogfight, I think. But can you tell the people like so obviously it was the first round with that kick, right?
Yep.
I've talked to a few people about it, but people don't understand in Muay Thai how important an arm kick is, like how important it is to actually lift your leg. Like, do you want to maybe explain what happened there? Like, because obviously Panna was sort of sitting on the back foot and he was trying to stop you with his right leg as you were stepping in. Maybe just explain, because obviously I saw it live, and you tell your side of it.
So because unfortunately, I was not blessed with a long arm. I was not blessed with power. I was not blessed with coordination. I was not blessed with functional hips. So I was a volume puncher with low kicks. They were kind of like pillows on my left and right hands. So that's what somewhat led to my spazzy style. I landed probably less than 10 body kicks over 14 fights. And they were pretty ugly at that. So I knew that I was always going to have to pass kicker's kick range to get into my volume punching range and then try chop up some legs. And then obviously everyone knew that, especially Pinky. We'd done 2 Jason's fights. So that's 10 rounds together. All I did for 10 rounds was punch and low kick, sorry. And so stepping in against Panna, he knew I wanted to come into punching range. So he sat there, wouldn't bite on a single feint, and just had a beautiful, like Pinky said, pro style. Anytime I would try to step into that punching distance, he would fire the right kick. And because I didn't come from a good Thai gym, it was the first thing I had to fix when I got to Thailand was my lack of checking. Because I wanted to close that distance into boxing, I would Dutch block and I would punch out of it. When I say I was a K1 fighter that threw elbows, it was a very true statement. And early in the first round, less than 5 kicks in, Panna caught me on the forearm, and I swear to all the gods, I thought he broke my arm. You see it, I know the moment it happened because I see my face change and I step back, and I don't step back that much. And then the very next kick Panna threw, you see me fold underneath it because it hurt so much. And Pinky screams from the corner, "He's hurt, get him." And I remember watching the playback being like, "Damn you, Pinky, your good set of eyes," because you called that instantly. That was the first time I've been truly hurt. I have only ever thought about twice in fights taking a knee. And I knew I would get back up, but I was like, if he'd double kicked, I would have had to go down. I was in so much pain from that kick. I swear he'd broken my arm. First round, 5 rounds. And I thought, do I need to take a knee and have a couple of deep breaths here and just kind of breathe through it? And I was like, nah, I'll feint a little bit on the outside. And then the very next thing Panna threw was a right kick. And for the rest of the fight, as a low kicker, I loved my lead hand, just jabs, hooks off the lead side, take little angles and chop that lead leg. It just threw my whole game off. Like even in the corners, I didn't tell my corner for like 3 rounds, which now as a coach, I would slap me for because I've had a fighter injure his foot and him come back and me tell him to use that leg and then him at the end be like, "Oh, I busted that leg in the second and so I couldn't throw it." I was like, if you'd told me the left foot was working just as well, like we could have worked around it. And as a coach, now I know how frustrating that was, but I didn't tell them until between 4 and 5 when they were telling me off for not using my hook at all. I was like, I can't move my arm. So yeah, Panna's style, like if you ever watch it, I think it's up on Pinky's YouTube channel. He's even against the ropes at one stage and I feint 6-7 times to try and make him kick, and I was leaning back off his kicks and I was coming into punching range. And he just sat confidence behind his style. Listened to Pinky medium well. Every time I'd step in, Pinky would call for the kick, and most of the time he would. Yep. And then sometimes if I was feinting too far out, you'd call for the switch kick. It was, yeah, if you look at it in terms of beauty, Panna won the Muay Thai fight day in and day out. If that was in Thailand, there's no way he wouldn't have won that fight. He was the effective scorer. I was abusing the system of referees not knowing what beautiful Muay Thai was and just using volume strikes that weren't doing any damage. If you look at damage, Panna had a sore leg because I did kick him in the leg, but damage-wise, I couldn't use my hand for like 3 months.
So yeah, that's a big thing to take from this, and I think one of the things now that is very different about you and why, as a friend and as I don't know whether it's looked like that mentor sort of role, like that, the fact that you've adapted to what worked for you, isn't necessarily what Muay Thai is about, but like that style of sitting back, throwing the kicks. Also in Thailand, if someone's running at you throwing hands, even if they're not heavy, if you're running backwards scared of getting hit, you're still looking shit on the judges' scorecards. And I got to the end of that fight and I thought Panna had won, but I think it was more through, like, my honest opinion now is it was probably more through him actually surprising me that he did that well.
Yeah.
Like he had 4 at that stage. He was 4-0 as an amateur, but his first fight was a reasonable fight. Second fight was that jelly bean in Queensland. Third fight wasn't too bad. It was a big tall guy in Melbourne, and his fourth fight was that absolute beating he dished out on the first SA Muay Thai League. Yeah. So he'd had like a pretty easy run as such. Like his first fight was like he dropped the dude with a head kick in the first round or something. Went the distance, but
Must be nice.
must be nice to be able to lift. Man, I threw one head kick. I threw one head kick in my whole career, I think. Actually, I threw two. So one was about maybe 30-something fights in. I threw a head kick, totally missed, and because I was trying to reach, I just fell over. Like my other leg took off in the air as well, hit the ground. So I was similar to you. And then my last fight, the dude was really short. I threw a head kick and my leg got stuck on his shoulder and my hip was cramping up. The joys of not having any flexibility. So fast forward to 2024. You've been open for 12 months as a gym. I sing your praises a fair bit due to how quickly you've come on the scene and how quickly you changed from everything that I identified you as. As I said, I liked you from the first time I had a conversation with you. I thought you were a fucking great guy. Thought your Muay Thai was pus, but as a human, I've thought you were a great dude. Evey's a lovely girl. She ended up becoming one of my students for a period of time. I can't sing your praises enough as to how much you guys have come on the scene literally doing Muay Thai. Like you've taken guys from other gyms, which is obviously one of those things we've discussed that it's not the same as having your own guys. The biggest problem, let's talk about this. The biggest problem with taking people from other gyms, and this is not me saying I don't want people from other gyms, but you have to realize that if you're coming to me as an amateur, I'm going to treat you like an amateur, so should you. Too many people have that. They're not allowed to fight because they haven't been training long enough, or they're not allowed to join this group because they haven't done a grading, or they're not allowed to this, or they're not. There's so much pedestaling. When someone says to me, "Oh, bro, I'm not a fighter," like because I've had a couple of amateur fights and it didn't go too well, my reply is, "I know you're an amateur. Like, once you go pro, then tell me you're a fighter, right?" So, how have you noticed so far? Because you've had guys start with you, have their first fights with you, even people who have never had a fight but trained at another gym. Can you see the difference in the mentality between the guys who are willing to jump in and go, "Yep, no worries," compared to the guys that think way too much about it because of previous conditioning they've had? Man, that took way too long to get to that question, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. I've had guys that come from other gyms and want to do training camps like I described in my early days for interclubs. Like, they've come to my gym and I'm like, "You're already sparring. You might have already had 1 or 2 fights under your gym. I'll let that one be." I didn't. Yep. And so you can still do the development days, what we call D-class interclubs here in SA. And they're like, "Oh, nah, man, I'd need a couple of months of like solid training for that." I'm like, no. You spar every Wednesday here on our sparring day. If you can spar here for 12 rounds plus, 12 rounds of sparring, 12 rounds of clinching, you can do 3 1.5-minute rounds of good quality Muay Thai controlled sparring at another gym. That's 10% of our usual training load. Of course, you're ready to do an interclub. Whereas the guys and girls from my gym that have started under me are like, "Yeah, cool. You're saying I get to do 10% of the usual training load and I get to hang out with my friends at a place where everyone's doing the sport that I really enjoy? This is awesome."
Yep.
There's absolutely no pedestaling of that. Either in your other podcast or your first episode here, I think on your Ring Lovers podcast, you talked about how you're a light sparring gym. C-class is your hard sparring.
Yep.
This will prepare you, like you said, you coach for pro fights. We spar in the gym, that's development and learning. The hard sparring is done in C-class. That's what amateurs is, with the intention of long-term goals, not even successes and wins, successes in making it from Ds into club, Cs amateurs, Bs semi-padded or whatever we want to call Bs, up into an A-class pro fight. And if you come from another gym, you've got to unlearn that. You can't think it's the be-all and end-all to have a C-class fight. And that was the Adelaide recipe for so long. I think the average Muay Thai career in Adelaide would have been 1 to 3 amateurs, probably their first loss.
I've got
and
statistics.
Oh, you got statistics?
Yeah.
Numbers man over here.
I'll get that to that in a sec.
And that's the bee's knees. That's their world title. That's their pro thing. You can't think that of an amateur fight, let alone an interclub. And other gyms, they're just, whether you want to call it an opinion, whether you want to say I'm right or wrong, they're just not doing the right thing. They are making it too much of a big deal, or they don't do interclubs, so then a C-class all of a sudden becomes a big deal. If there's not the correct baby steps, they go from, crawling to sprinting, then it's hard to convince them that it's not a big deal because they've never experienced anything like that.
Well said. I couldn't agree more. So pre-scamdemic, when Tom Hunter was still in charge, the statistics were 97% of people that signed up with the Office of Sport and Rec to as a fighter, 97% had one fight or less. 1% would have 5 fights or more.
Yeah.
Like, that's horrendous. I don't know the statistics now, but I could almost guarantee between your gym, my gym, Paddy's gym, Matt's gym, Flinders, between our gyms, there's obviously Strong Heart's the other one, the Boars, these gyms, we're the fluffers. Like, we're pumping up those statistics. I'd like to see the statistics now. Less likely to get them now that we don't have anyone cool in the position in the grubberment. But I could almost guarantee that it'd be something like maybe 85% maybe now. Like, there'd be way better numbers, and the 5 and ups would have to be a good 6 or 7%, I'd say, because man, like, how quickly can you have that now as well? You know, like, that was also a thing back in my day. There was 4, maybe 5 shows a year, sometimes 6. So back then you had Ethan as the main promoter, like Knees of Fury was the main promotion back when he was still doing good stuff. Then, but obviously it was very different then. Like, you had padded fights on there as well, and he was happy to have that and all that sort of stuff. So you had that, and then you have 1 to 2 shows a year. John Lee and Darius, so Duel Master, they'd put on every year on the weekend of Anzac Day. They'd have a show, and there was always a SA versus WA thing. It'd be a mixture of Muay Thai and kickboxing on the show, but you'd have like a team of WA and a team of here like fight each other for like an annual trophy thing. That was always pretty cool. And then at that stage, John Chaniotis was still doing shows with a guy named Pat Christophe, a Melbourne kickboxing guy. Yep. They were putting on shows which were mostly kickboxing shows, but I remember Anthony Cox fought on there. Like, still a few of the guys who are trainers now, like Simon Pitch fought on them. There's trainers now that are around that were fighting on those shows. So if you say 6 shows a year was probably the norm for Adelaide, you might get matched on 2 of them.
Yeah.
So when I went to Thailand the first time, I'd had 2 fights in 2 years. And then I had 4 or 5 fights in a year because I can't remember. I think I've had 4 fights. In my first year going to Thailand, I had 4 fights only because I came back from Thailand, and then someone I met in Thailand was like, do you want to come fight an 8-man in Darwin? I'm like, yeah, right. So I flew up there day of, still had to weigh in, all that sort of stuff, and fought an 8-man, got through to the final. So that was my 3rd, 4th and 5th fights. And then I fought again later that year on a Knees of Fury, got absolutely flogged by one of the guys from Barossa. And the next year it was like, I went to Thailand, I had a few fights. I think I had like 4 or 5 fights really easily. And that was with a broken ankle in between. So it was like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, if I want to actually have a lot of these fights, I've actually got to be in Thailand. Now you can actually do it here. Like, Panna is going to Thailand for the first time on Monday. And I was talking about it last night, in his first year of fighting, he had 11 fights. Yeah. And it's actually not that hard. Like, I've got Tyler fighting this weekend. This will be his 4th fight in 10 weeks from 0. It's Jan, he's fighting your boy. It's his 2nd fight in 2 weeks. Like, 2 weeks apart. It's actually really easy to rack up fights now. So a lot of the thing now is you don't have that big build up for each fight. So as trainers, we've got to do that too, right? That's how we've got to treat it with our students. A lot of the old school trainers, this is where they mess up, is they have that mentality of it's still like it was in the early 2000s, or even until like just before COVID, really.
Yeah.
Before the scamdemic, it was still, there wasn't that many shows. Whereas now we've got one almost every month. Like we're going into a period now where we've got this weekend and then there's nothing until the end of September, which I won't be doing anyway.
I won't be on that.
So it won't be anything until like November for South. But it's been pretty much almost every month since the start of the year. There's been something that we could have gone on. So we have opportunities now to be racking up fights. And this is where I'm trying to educate SA, even with what we do with the interclubs and all that sort of stuff. It's just do it. Just get it happening. Like, get your numbers up. If someone takes a little bit longer, let them rack up a few extra amateurs. Don't pedestal going pro. Just make sure that you have some steps to make people realise the difference between amateur and pro, because there is a difference, and it's actually not a scary difference. It's actually, if you think about it, you're on the same. You've got the same weapons as what the other person has, and I was talking about, I've had a couple of guys who, not the biggest hearts as an amateur, but I do believe they could go better as a pro, because all of a sudden the person feels their power because it's shin action hitting them in the ribs or in the forearms and all that sort of stuff. You started in pads. Did you have padded fights?
When you want to talk about doing it properly, D, C, B, A, I know my alphabet, and how murky the water is in SA and trying to unblur those lines, I debuted in full pads, full Thai rules, 3 3-minute rounds, up several weight classes from where I should be, and got rolled by Lee Farah. I fought on Shinza Steel at 74 kilos, I think. And yeah, I ate 3 big meals day of weigh-ins, because it was the weigh-ins at night, 24-hour weigh-ins, padded, 3 threes. Lost. Got murked. Got ran through. It's good fun though. But yeah, so I had that, and then I went to unpadded mod Thai, my very second one, without knowing that I went to unpadded until I asked for my pads backstage, and they went, "No, you're down for no pads." And I went, "Cool, let's go." That was Jai Breed. And that fight hurt a lot. He hits like a Mack truck.
He does.
It was a very rough first round. Thank God he got a little bit tired. But yeah, so I didn't really do the padded thing, but back then there was still very few shows, so it was hard to rack up. Part of the reason some of the people back in the day a bit had such few fights is you could only get, like you said, you got matched twice a year. A 6-fight career is a 3-year career. Now a 3-year career, if you're doing it properly, is anywhere from 10 to 30 AMs. You're probably gone pro in the second year at some stage, and now you're racking up fights. Like, how many years has Panna been fighting now?
Thanks for your question there, interviewer. So Panna had his first fight March 19, 2021.
So late scamdemic, mid-scamdemic.
Mid-scamdemic. So
in 4 years, is he almost at 20?
So 3.5 years, he's had 20.
Yeah.
So
That's a...
And you've also got to understand that. So the numbers is through choice as well.
Yeah.
So he had obviously 11 in his first year. He went pro like in that time. Then end of 2022, he decided he didn't want to fight again until he got back from Peru.
Yep.
So he wasn't going to Peru until June. Then he came back from Peru. 3 weeks later, he fought Quang.
Yep.
Then 5 weeks after that, he fought Tungi from PTJ on SRG. Then he's like, I want to have a break again until like this year, which was when he fought. So that was August through again till February. So another 6 months. So there's been a year in that time. So in 3 years, he's had 3 years of fighting.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, it's not actually abnormal numbers if you are willing to, you've got to travel.
Yeah.
Like you can obviously do the amateur thing here and still rack up numbers of fights. But man, Muay Thai Vic's down the road. Like, it's actually that easy, that drive now. Like, I do it so often. We get up at 6 a.m. Man, we're rolling into, like, the gym that we stay at, Cowboy. We roll in there at, like, 3 o'clock, and it's on the other side of the city. And we've had one stop on the way, maybe another pee stop quickly somewhere along the line, but smash it, get there. The drive back, obviously I go camping and stuff. It's a little bit harder driving back at night time than it is driving back in the day. But, man, we had 20 fights in Victoria last year. Well, the year before, I think it was even more because we had like 9 or 10 on one Muay Thai Vic, and then over other Muay Thai Vics and stuff, we had others on, right? I'm not saying do what I do, but I'm kind of saying do what I do to an extent. Like, you don't need to be blowing lots of money to be going on these trips. I have a buy-in. Like, my fighters have to give me a certain amount of money, which covers my fuel, covers accommodation, which accommodation's at my friend's gym. But man, you've seen I'm generous, bro. Like, I'm pretty quick to pay for a meal. Like, not last trip before, we went out for dinner the night before the fights to some, fucking, what do they call it? Hot pot joint. I think dinner was like $220, bro. But money's money. You know, at the end of the day, money's money. It's whatever. But I think you can do, if you're doing it on a budget, cheap accommodation, tag team the driving, one person drives some distance, that keep driving back. Like Jordan was at the last one. He slept, let Davina drive the whole way. But you can do this stuff on a budget, and you can have 50 fights in a year, for me, is where it starts getting hard.
Yeah.
Like, I think, man, I'm nowhere near that right now. I think we're up to like 20 or something. I reckon after this weekend we'll be at 20 for the year so far. And I'm totally cool with that. Like, I'm happy to tone down the amateur thing a little bit. Like, less guys on more shows.
Yeah.
So, like, I've got my focus on a few guys that are in the group. It's like, just start smashing them out. Instead of trying to have 10 guys on a show, have 4, 6, whatever, who I'm putting a little bit more time into. But I think where people struggle, they struggle between the making money bit and the investment in their fight team. And people are so caught up on making money, making their gym a profitable gym, which obviously you've got to do because it's an income and it's and whatnot, especially when it's a full-time gig. Like, obviously you do it full-time. Evey works, but your gym thing is full-time for you. Do you see the amateur fight scene as being an investment? Because that's probably where people struggle the most, and I think they need to hear more people talk about it. The amount of money that I put into my amateur team, I think it definitely pays off for my guys and for my gym as a whole, not through advertising and stuff, but through what my guys gain, and even through my pros having these amateurs coming through and sparring them and having clinching partners and all that sort of stuff. Constantly having an amateur team going makes my pros get more experience as well. Can you see the line between profiting and like spending profits and making it an investment? Like, I know it's a roundabout way of asking it, but that is the money worth it? What would be spent on traveling interstate?
Of course. If you're not investing in your amateurs, I just don't think you're going to grow. If you're too busy counting your dollars instead of counting, it sounds toy, but your experiences, getting to go interstate, it's even just the team bonding, especially the way you guys do it with the camping on the way back, especially for, like, not everyone that walks into a combat sports gym is a well put together human being that's really happy with every aspect of their life. So finding a team, finding a community inside that as well. And then, like you said, for you, like, we don't have any pros yet, we're 12 months old. But for the pros, if they've got no one to spar, they're not going to get any better. You've got 3 pros, whatever you've got in your gym, they can't just spar each other forever. If there's them, and then there's this massive gap between people who are learning to kick check, who are they going to spar? Who are they going to get better? It's, again, for a shit saying, rising tides raises all ships. If the pros are making the amateurs better, then the amateurs are going to get better and going to help the pros to get better. If you're not investing at the bottom level, like we talk about teaching the fundamentals of Muay Thai, if you don't have good fundamentals, everything else is going to fall apart. Same thing applies to a fight team. If the fundamental aspect of the gym isn't a good base of learning and competing for everyone, there's not going to be a top end of the pyramid. It's going to collapse. So going to Muay Vic, we've only been once so far, but we're going at least twice more this year, if not even more than that. And I don't know if I've told you this, but my long-term plan for my gym is to buy a van. And the van will go every time with 12 seats, and anything that's not occupied by my fighters or my athletes, any other gym can put someone in that seat. If South Australia keep just doing the good and the average South Australian shows, it's not going to raise the whole of South Australian Muay Thai up. If they're competing, if they go over to Muay Vic and we take 10 people, and it's not about winning, it's about listening to your coach and developing. But if every time we take 10 people, 10 South Australians get smoked, people realize the difference in level between South Australian Muay Thai and then the better states of Muay Thai. So to expose more gyms, more people, if you can go over there early in your amateurs and be like, look at the level that's here, why don't I get that back in South Australia? Let me make positive changes towards that. Awesome. The next generation of gym owners at some stage right now will all be in the amateurs. If they're learning a better path than what they have learned or what their coaches have learned, it's only going to upgrade from there, hopefully. Because the amateur scene's almost just starting. I've been saying this for about 6 months now. I think South Australia is about, I'll be interested to see what you think. I'll interview you again on your podcast. I reckon we're 3 to 5 years off South Australia's golden era of Muay Thai. You had an interclub once for the Ring Lovers Interclub. There was like 40 matches. That's 80 people, except for the people doubling up, that were there to do an interclub. When I started Muay Thai, there was probably barely 80 people doing Muay Thai, let alone real Muay Thai in South Australia. It's growing at a great rate as long as it's growing in a positive direction. And I think doing stuff like Muay Vics, aiming for enough amateurs, making clear lines in the sand between all the different classes is what's going to get us there. And if you're not investing back in your amateur team, then by the time you're going to have one amateur, you're going to go pro into state, you're going to do all these sorts of crazy things, and you're not going to help the culture or the state grow its Muay Thai. Things like you took me to my first Muay Vic. You said, hey Sam, jump in the car, come along. You let me corner with you to get me cornering experience. When you said that mentorship, that buddyship, that like apprenticeship style of us learning under someone more experienced in the game, it's just about not having an ego and being willing to ask someone who's been in the game for as long as you have. I consider myself a very young coach. I've had a gym for a year. I spent a bit over a year in Thailand kind of thing. I tell my students, I don't know it all. And if I ever tell you I know it all, go find a gym where the coach is living in reality, because I'll probably never know it all. But by trying to develop it, trying to do Muay Vics, trying to do investing in your own amateurs, I think is how we'll all grow. And in 3 years, the 80 competitors that did your own club, say quarter of them, maybe not even quarter of them would, but say 20 of them then do amateurs. Say 10 of them have 5 to 10 amateur fights. That's already bigger than most careers were 5-10 years ago, pre-scandemic, when Tommy Hunter gave you 97% of people have 1 or less.
Yep.
I think the average will start to look like the average is 10. The people that do their 10 and then go pro, and then the people that only do 3 or 4 because, life got in the way, will pull the numbers down always. But I think we are growing and heading in the right direction. We have real amateur shows, the Day Show on Pride, Paddy's Valley, that will only produce good numbers of amateur fights. Then they'll have B class, then they'll have A class. And those, like we just said, when there's enough pros in South Australia that it's all trickling down, then the amateurs are going to look like what the pros do now. You see it in Melbourne and stuff. Their amateurs look better than like some of the gyms that turn people pro here in SA, without a doubt.
Yep.
They're on their 5th amateur and they're looking like people that have had a couple of pro fights from some of these lesser true Muay Thai gyms here in SA. And that's just not the right way to do it, in my opinion. Everyone's got opinions, but that's my opinion. And I think, like I said earlier, the stuff you're doing, and preaching is not the right word. You said, they don't have to be a panner and do 20 in 3 years. I'm not saying it's the right way, but by setting a good quality blueprint, even if they do 10 in the same amount of time, but it's 10 quality ones and their level looks nice and it's good Muay Thai or beautiful Muay Thai, it's going to be better for the sport and it's going to be better for the South Australian scene as a whole as we hopefully come up over the next few years. And I also think the number of gyms trying to do the right thing is increasing. It's not like we are probably the minority, but I think we're slowly claiming ground on like whatever you want to describe the other gyms as.
My thing with that, is I've got 2 points to make from what you just said, but my thing is the number of real Muay Thai gyms in South Australia right now, we're outnumbering the other gyms through sheer numbers of guys that we're willing to put in because we're not pedestaling it. So you look at, like this weekend, if we looked at the card, between, this is obviously the first one that Matt hasn't put anyone on, but between like, you know, us and, you know, it's always the same. It's like you, me, Strongheart, Gorilla, Boars, and Full Tilt. Pretty much we could fill a card pretty much almost every time, right? All of a sudden we're outdoing the rest of them. Because I know there was a trainer at one point who every time there was an offer made to them, he would be like, oh, nah, because can we do it at this weight? And can we do this? And can we do that? And man, that's the old, man, I'll say it on here, like I don't give a fuck whose feelings are going to get hurt. I don't care. The Southside recipe used to be, they will say yes to almost every fight, but there will be a but. So I uploaded yesterday on YouTube Rig's second title, second title fight. So he'd fought and lost by a pretty bad decision, I believe, to Blake Holly in Whyalla. Yep. And then Blake Holly took that fight on like a week's notice to replace his original opponent for a state title. For a state title, then they said, yeah, we'll take it, but it's an 83 kilo state title, but it's got to be at 82 and no elbows. Yes, that reaction, perfect reaction. And I'm not taking anything away from the fighters. The fighters, I have nothing but respect because fighters will just do what their trainer says. Good on you. Bless you.
That's what you should be doing.
Yeah. And when Matt Moss fought Ben Millington, that was all right with elbow pads though. There was always a but. And it's not just like sometimes, I don't remember there not being a but. There's never just like, yep, all right, sweet, let's take it. Like the only time they started doing the no buts, I guess, was when it came time for their own show, because all of a sudden they had to stick to rules because it was being policed by MTA.
Yeah. And
now they're going back to the buts because they've gone to WKA. The other thing I was going to take from what you said before was the whole, I look at it, why people don't do the Muay Thai Victoria thing. I don't even think it's a money thing. Maybe for some, it's part of it. I honestly think people don't want to be proved that they're shit. And the fact that any of us gyms from SA who are willing to go to Muay Thai Victoria, we soon realise that the level here is pretty fucking low. And that's okay. Like, you've just got to know that and keep trying to improve instead of just keep jumping on SA Muay Thai League and flogging another bum. Like, you go to Muay Thai Vic and you soon realise our amateurs here are really not very good. And so, as I said before, we hardly fucking win as amateurs. Yeah. With my crew, you know? It's like, it does it hit me in the heart sometimes? Yeah, it does. I don't let my fighters see it. But then when I have a reality check and like listening to the Muay Thai Hour the other day, Kieran and Andy talking about it, where, you know, doing 3-minute amateurs, mate, like, you know, starting to make that sort of thing happen. And that feeling of training people to fight pro, but you're not even giving them a chance to fight that style from day one because of how fast 3-2s is. I'm happy to be on the losing end of the amateurs thing as long as my guys realise that they're better than most of the guys in SA. Because then you put them in, you do the same thing as a pro, it's a different story. All of a sudden you've got that extra minute around, where if you do get flogged for the first round, 3 minutes is a long time. And if someone's trying to do the fucking swing and ding for 3 minutes, if they don't have a huge gas tank, there's a fair chance by the second round you're actually, the guy with real Muay Thai is going to actually start having a comeback.
Yeah.
As long as they keep their heart in it for that time.
Yeah.
So I honestly think the biggest problem with SA gyms right now is the old school mentality in so many of the gyms. All the ones that we mentioned before, man, like we're all on the same wavelength as far as chucking guys in, getting them experience. Most of us, like probably a good chunk of SA now are doing the whole do proper amateur.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of the crossover. It's still there. You don't get a lot of that crossover. But I even think doing the crossover, people are starting to learn from the crossover as well now that there is actually a reason why we have it the way we have it. And, you know, then you've got shows that are doing Muay Thai in a cage and all that sort of stuff. That's trying to be relevant. That's seeing someone else's model at the top and trying to replicate that. But that's not what we're aiming at, right? Like, you don't get to the top by starting at the top. You work your way up there, and, you know, dudes fighting in little gloves with any less than 30 to 50 fights is probably dumb because you haven't learnt enough and you don't know yet whether you can move your head well enough, because you've got to get by with head movement with the small gloves. Like, you know, I know I'm not putting guys in with small gloves, but you've got to have good head movement with the small gloves because you don't have the coverage. So there's still obviously the comparison I did on the last video, I believe, or last episode, was the whole VAMA versus Muay Thai Vic thing.
Yep.
And right now in SA, as far as amateurs go, it would be obviously SA Muay Thai League versus Muay Thai Australia, Muay Thai South Australia as such. Unfortunately, the name's been stolen. When people want to be everything. I think then you've got those blurred lines shows like obviously DFC. They're an MMA show. Don't know why they don't just stick to it. Then you've got obviously Knees of Fury, which is I'm happy to say because of them not wanting to follow what works, that it hasn't worked out for them. And, you know, man, do your thing in New Zealand. Enjoy that. And make your money. That's fine. Like, if it's working there for you, great. I don't think there's a place for it here anymore. It was one of those platforms that never developed with the times. And sometimes developing means going back.
You got to follow the trends. And the trend right now is building quality amateurs so that we can have a pro scene. If you're only trying to pull people from nothing into pros, then you're just not following, you're not checking the temperature of the room. The temperature of the room is quality amateurs is what we're trying to do in SA, and the good gyms, which are, again, we are the majority of filling out the cards. So if you're not listening to what we're saying we need and want, you're not going to get fighters from us. And then that's what happens.
Yeah. The whole handing out titles thing. So I'm happy to quote a conversation I had with Ethan Shep, the promoter of Knees of Fury, back in the day when I wouldn't put people on his show, and he asked me why. And I said, look, wait till you're in Adelaide. I'll sit down with you and I'll talk over lunch. Went out for lunch, and I said to him, like, he went from having a WMC show, reputable fighters on there, reputable titles, to all of a sudden putting WKBF world titles on because all of his champions had retired.
Yeah.
That's because there was no investment in that next generation.
Yep.
And someone who is supposedly meant to be the Muay Thai guy for South Australia should have seen that. And that conversation I had with him, I said, this is where we're at in South Australia. This was like 6 years ago. This is where we're at in South Australia, and we need to build it from the bottom. So fake titles and all this bullshit, like, it's not beneficial at all for what's happening. It's a short-term recipe. So now promoters, if you're handing out belts, shitty belts on shows, you're doing the Knees of Fury recipe. You're trying to find fake champions to make legitimacy instead of earning legitimacy the proper way, the hard way. So Knees of Fury went down the toilet because finally people started doing the right thing, and it was the card fillers who realised it, who were like, okay, we're not putting people on with no padding anymore just because we can in South Australia.
Yeah.
Legislation, if you go by legislation, man, you can have your first fight with unpadded.
Yeah.
But it's not okay. That's how you get That's what it used to be. Then they brought in with the headgear, and then you had to have an MRI to be able to fight without the padding. Promoters would pay for the MRIs. Some sanctioning bodies like WKA was only unpadded. So everyone fighting on a WKA show had to have an MRI. Promoters were just going broke with paying for MRIs and stuff. Now it's on the promoters to do the right thing to help with the growth. Otherwise, you will get left behind like Nisa Fury did. And after Nisa Fury's last cancellation, I got an inbox from fucking Ethan saying, bro, is there any advice you can give me to make it work in South Australia? What a fucking kick in the dick. Like, that to me was like, here, would you like to fucking have a repeat of that lunch meal we had 6 years ago? Because you would soon realise that you fucked up because you didn't listen to me because I was a nobody to you. You'd been promoting that was his thing. I've been doing this for a long time. I know how it works. Okay, clearly not. Because, yes, it didn't collapse overnight. But that putting on fake titles shit is the beginning of the end. And that's... Man, I don't give a fuck if SA Muay Thai League collapses or it doesn't. But they've gone down that path now, and that leads to an irrelevant show like Vama now in Victoria, where you have those crossover gyms, it's all the MMA gyms, the kickboxing gyms, and some guys that do Muay Thai will do it. And as I say, there's a place for it. But you've lost your chance of being part of a bigger picture, because now you've got the guys, their pinnacle is going to be fighting for a title on your show.
Yeah.
Victoria, they might move on to fighting on Power Play or Road to Legends. No, the Road to Legends is the right one. It's what's the fucking Ultimate Legends? Ultimate Legends in exactly in Melbourne. Those shows that, man, they've been and gone. But that's what SA Muay Thai League have, probably a 6 month, say a 3-show window to get their shit together and do the right thing, like actually go to do the right thing. But I can guarantee now they're not going to want to work with Carly because their ego's butt hurt. And that was a big part of why I reckon they left MTA as well, because she won't put people on her show because of them not being able to see the difference between being a promoter and being a trainer. They did the wrong thing by her on one of the shows with trying to price one of their fighters out of the market so they could have a fight guaranteed for their show. And if you're trying to hold on to fighters for a show, then I can guarantee you are going to end up collapsing. You've got to let fighters do what's right for the fighter. They should be able to fight wherever they want. If it fits in on your card, great. If it doesn't, let them go. And then maybe you get them on the next show. You've got to think about the fighter. And you can see, I feel so sorry for Corey Bartlett. That guy has so much potential, like Ben Millington did.
Yeah.
But they're stuck main eventing an amateur show. And unfortunately, because they're like the old Nisa Fury thing, he used to make the guys, if you fight just on my show, I'll look after you. I'll get you matched every time. Man, that's not enough. It's not enough to get somewhere in the sport. And someone like Corey Bartlett, who, I see so much potential in that guy. Like, he's built for it, style, he's tough. Man, he flogged Panna and he flogged Carl.
Yeah.
Like, he's good. But unfortunately for him, he's going to be stuck being no one. No one's ever going to recognise him because he's on a show that isn't on the radar. And I said on the last episode also, like, man, surely as a trainer, your dream is to have someone on Rebellion, right?
Damn straight.
Yeah. And
Hi, Si.
yeah. And to not have that aim is pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Like, if that's not your aim, even if you're the promoter of a show, SA Muay Thai League, don't you want bigger and better things for your guy? Is your guy a cash cow for you? Or is he someone who you really want to see succeed in life?
Yeah.
And selflessness, man, try and be a good trainer and be selfish. What hope have you got? I was lucky. having Sam Benetti as my trainer, like back when the kickboxing scene was huge, we were doing Muay Thai, but we had the kickboxing shows were still big with a mixture of both on them. That's how all the shows were back then.
Yeah.
If I wanted to fight, Sam would go, I'll get you on next month. Like there would always be something on in Victoria, or we'd go to War on the Shore in Queensland, or it was always something, always had something to go to. But as other than us back then and Flinders, no one was really fighting interstate. Now everyone has that opportunity. Man, like send promoters a message, and you've got a guy who's a debut amateur or a debut pro, or they've had one or two pro fights here or whatever. Offer to self-fund.
Yeah.
Can you put me in a hotel room if I fly myself there? Start just going to shows. Like, man, massive shows. Like this massive one for Rebellion. Are you coming to Rebellion?
Yes.
Yeehaw, motherfucker. So those are the things. It's called networking. Any other business model includes networking. What we're doing is networking. You coming to Muay Thai Victoria with us was networking. Now you taking guys to Muay Thai Victoria is networking. It's not sucking dicks. It's being the good guy and being selfless for the sake of students. Rant over. So moving on from that, we'll wind it up just here. What's next for you guys? You've obviously got someone permanently in Thailand now, like they're over there full time, yeah?
Yep.
Which is fantastic. He's obviously your first pro.
Technically, yep.
Yeah, okay. How many fights has Ned had now?
He's had one in Thailand. I think he had 5 padded back here, maybe even 6 before he went.
Yep.
So yeah, he's there full time. He's had one over there. He's booked in next weekend, which will be his second, which is fun. He's up in Ubon.
That's
a
cool.
gym name I can't pronounce, but he's loving it. That Bush Muay Thai League.
Ubon.
Yep, that one. That's the one. Can't pronounce stuff in English, let alone Thai. My English is terrible. So yeah, he was our first pro, and he's doing it. He's 20, 21, living over there full time. He'll be there for at least a year, and then I wouldn't be surprised if he does the whole come back, earn cash 3-6 months, go back again kind of thing. And I think he'll do that for a while.
And that's where I'm at with Carl right now. So Carl's just come back after, I think it was 12 months, and he's here for like a couple of months. Originally he goes, I might stay indefinitely, like until I figure out. But then he said last night, he goes, I want to go back to Thailand in a couple of months, which is, man, that's the norm. He'll probably do that for the next 5 or 6 years, you know?
Yep.
And, you know, while he's back, man, all of a sudden I've got another pro fighter again, like another guy to jump in locally, you know? I look at him as my fighter. Like he started at Strongheart. His first fight was against us. He fought Meech.
Yep.
Yeah, so...
His second fight was against one of my coaches and teammates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so he... you know, he started against us and then being part of my team, and he came to me because his brother was already with me, and his brother was the guy who went against Corey on the Interclub.
Yep.
So it's like, this is the thing, like, if someone left my gym one day also to go to yours, sweet man.
As long as they're going to a Muay Thai gym, what I would consider a Muay Thai gym, it's about the growth of, I'm not out for me, I'm out. I'm out enough for me that I have a job, but I'm out for the growth of Muay Thai.
Yep.
Anything I can do towards that, as long as you go to one of, again, a Muay Thai gym, sweet. Going to go learn from Pinky? Go for it. You've got 20
Because you've got a guy that comes to me, right? You've got a guy that comes to me for sparring every week.
Every week.
He could stay with you guys on that night, but he comes to me, right? Like, and it's just, it works for him.
100%. And anyone that goes between, again, what we consider the good gym or whatever we consider the good gyms, awesome. Keep doing Muay Thai. And if you enjoy it, and one gym might not even be a like-dislike thing. One gym might be more convenient. You've got a new job, it's on the other side of town, you got to drive the opposite way through traffic at peak hour. Cool, go to a Muay Thai somewhere else. As long as you're enjoying it and it's making a positive impact on your life and on the Muay Thai community, sweet. And also, if you are like Carl's and how old's Carl?
30-ish.
Okay, yeah. Like, when you are young and you can go back and forth, especially if you're not married or tied down or anything, go for it. Me and Evey, my partner, amazing woman, we wouldn't have Adelaide Muay Thai without her. I'm not lying. I'm not good at most things in life except for hopefully teaching Muay Thai. We would have stayed forever. If we had met when we were 20 and we'd moved in when we were 20, we would have been there until we were 30, which was when we left. But at 30, we wanted to start the next stage of our life and start to make a little bit more concrete future plans for a while. So we came back. But yeah, why wouldn't you go at that age?
Yeah, 100%. And the whole people don't want their guys going to Thailand. Man, Panna's one of the most important people in my gym, like as far as having with the place running, you know, like he runs classes, he's holds pads for the amateurs, and he's one of the most experienced guys in the gym. And when he says he wants to go to Thailand, man, cool, amazing, go for it. Because this is probably, let's finish on this subject. The importance of people actually going to Thailand, like that's what woke you up, right? Like, because I remember when Evey came back and she goes, when you used to talk, or I thought you used to talk shit, now I understand. And I think everyone should get their ass to Thailand to see, just to know what is real and what isn't, right? I talk about it a lot. I've said it a lot over the years, like about, you know, without Thailand, I don't think anyone really has the opportunity to be their best at Muay Thai. Yeah. You don't necessarily need the trainers that Thailand has, but you need to be around the whole Muay Thai culture. Was it a quick realization for you when you got there? Was it like a light bulb moment where you're like, hey, Pinky's not a fuckhead? Or was it like, or was it a gradual process, you know, after that you went to fight, or, you know, and you're like, oh, hang on, it's a little bit different when you fight here. What was that? How quick was that process?
It was day and night. I think I probably realized a little bit before I went, because, you know, these days with the internet, there's so many great YouTube channels that just hang out at gyms, like Sandboxing stuff that do great quality stuff, Sylvie, all these different channels that show real culture of Muay Thai, not just in a ring punching and kicking kind of thing. That I'd started to, like, you know, I started to see the light, but it was day and night. I got there and I was like, yeah, this is real Muay Thai. Especially being at Phuket Fight Club, it's 90%, 95% foreigners that fight out of there, but it's real Muay Thai. And, you know, Thai trainers still, obviously, and Leo Elias, having lived in Thailand for 10, 20 years at this point, teaching, and, you know, it trickles down from the top, his theories, his philosophies on fighting and stuff, that, yeah, it was day and night. I can't say that everyone's got spare money to go on a holiday, but it's a crazy cheap country once you're there. The expensive bit is the airfares. Even training itself's not that expensive.
$1,200.
Yeah, you can. I'm not telling you how to live your life, but you can probably save up over a little while if you love Muay Thai and get over there. Whether it's even for a couple of weeks, you can go over there for a couple of weeks, have
light bulb moments.
Yeah, it'll just be day and night for you. It really will, especially if it's something you truly enjoy in your life. You just should do it. It's crazy people that have. It's not crazy because, you know, different people, different lives, different walks of life. But if you can, why wouldn't you get over there?
Yep.
It's the home country of a thing that you're at least somewhat passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just how it is.
Sweet. Awesome. So we're going to leave it at that. That's a good little whack. I'm going to get this edited. I'll be up on YouTube and Spotify tomorrow lunchtime, I reckon.
So if you're watching this, it'll be out right now.
True. Didn't really think about that, did I? Plan is to do one a week. Make sure you're also liking, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I should say that shit at the start. Adelaide Muay Thai on Instagram. What is it? Kiwi Viking? Is it
that.kiwi.viking, but just follow my gym page.
Yeah, follow the gym page. Or you've got Evey Nathan. Is it Evey Nathan?
Evey.
What's hers?
EveyNathan.amt.
That's right. Yep. So Evie's another one. She's got a really good mentality about it and nice style and awesome human. Awesome human. So yeah, follow those guys. We've obviously got Ring Lovers podcast as well, which is out every Monday on Spotify, with my good friend Matt Moss. I've got Team Pinky Muay Thai page. I've got this page. Just follow some shit. See, and if you don't like it, cool. If you do, even better. But I want to thank you very much for. It was a bit of a fuck around actually getting to actually recording today, but it probably took us 2 hours longer to actually get started than it should have. But yeah, thank you very much for being part of this today, and we'll do it again in future.
Thank you for involving yourself in my life and improving my not only Muay Thai but knowledge of Muay Thai.
Oh, sweet. All right, ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ